Welcome to Microsoft Word 2019 Lesson 2 by Megan Reese. Today's lesson is called Text versus Images, and the entire point of this lesson is to help you recognize the way that text and images interact in Word. It's one of the things that confuses most people and what makes them sometimes think that Word is difficult to work with. And I think a lot of time it's because they don't understand this concept. I saw this meme the other day, and I thought it was so funny. I had to put it up in my classroom where it says, using Microsoft Word, moves an image a millimeter to the left. All text and images shift, 4 new pages appear, paragraph breaks form a union, a swarm of comma buzzes at the window, in the distance, sirens. And it's this idea that as soon as you try to do anything in Word, move an image especially, everything moves around, everything's all screwed up, and what happened, and why is everything ruined? And so I'll make sure you understand that concept, because if you can get through that, you can do anything in Word. So we're going to be doing a lot of features today that are verses, where it's like, this is what it's like. These are two similar features, but one is an image and one is paragraph or text. So you can see how they work together. So if we look at today's assignment, we're divided into 4 areas. We're going to talk about page features first, and then we're going to go into text versus images, where we compare, like I was talking about, those 2 different things. And then we're just going to learn some features that use text and some features that use images. So these are all the things that we're going to be covering today. So before we begin, just remember the first step you should always do is where it says I can. You should go through and check off the ones you already know. If you're like, oh, actually, I already know how to add a page number, then go ahead and check that one. And you may not need to watch that section of the video. Okay, you can just go ahead and straight to the assignment and do this part, and because you don't need to watch the video. Some of these though, especially the footer spacing, you probably don't know, but just check the ones that you already know. And so you know how much of this video you're going to be able to skip and just do straight into the assignment. All right, so first thing we're going to start with is page number, and that's how you can number every single page. It's part of the footer. So you go to Insert, and you've got page number right here, and you have several options. You can, the top of the page, bottom of the page, and page margins. And so the top of the page, of course, we'll put it at the top, and there's a whole bunch of different options in here that you can use, most of which I've never used. Most of the time I just use one of these, but you've also got your, and you can choose if you want the center, left, or right. Page margins, will actually put it in the side. Sometimes you've got a header and a footer already and you don't have room for that. That's actually going to be part of your assignment today. You'll be using a page margin today. And then current position I've never used. But anyway, those are different places where you can put it. And if you put a page margin in, so let's put one in here, it's going to immediately throw it in there. That's a weird one, but whatever. And there it is. And if I have more than one page, it will automatically number the second page. Even if I make changes later, the pages will automatically adjust. Can you imagine typing that in for every page? That would be obnoxious. Okay, so the next thing we're going to learn about is file name. So again, something in footer. There's a couple of things in footer that we're going to be doing today. Or header. I prefer footers, but that's really, honestly, this is the same in a header as it is a footer. But so for file name, you can type your name in here and then your period. And that's what we did in lesson 1. But from here on out, most lessons you're going to be doing a file name, although not in lesson 4. But so you're going to go in here to right here where it says document info, and you're going to choose file name, and it will put the now. Mine says document 10. That's because I haven't saved this yet. So this is one of those things that you want to do after you save the document. Okay. So what if I put a file name in here and then I save it after the fact? Will it automatically change? Okay, so let's say I save it as Megan's file. Okay, and it has a new name now. Still going to say document 10. So you want to make sure you always save it first, or I can go back and now when I do file name, it'll know that that's what it's called. But yeah, you want to make sure that before you do that, you always save it first. So then I can go in here and I can also choose that I want to change where my footer is from the bottom. So I can actually move it down a little bit closer. Now, if I go all the way to the bottom there, that's not a great idea, okay, at 0, because when I print this, unless you have some special printer, most printers are going to cut off like a 1/4 inch right here, there's always a white border. You'll see that especially when you do the application for lesson 4. There's always going to be that white border. And so you don't want to go that low, but usually you can go as low as 0.2 and it will still show up. And sometimes that's just the case. You just need that much more room. So that's how you move it up. Then again, you can do the same thing with the header. So if I have something up here, I can move it up this way as well. Okay. All right, next one is a watermark. There's 2 kinds of watermarks that you can do. You can only do one watermark in an assignment though. Like you can't have each page be a different watermark. But what a watermark is it's just a faded image or words that are in the background of every single page. And so this is going to be in the design tab. So we haven't really touched the design tab. We're going to do quite a bit from the design tab today. So we're going to do most of this stuff. There's not a lot in the design tab, but so we're going to start with watermark over here. And you'll notice it's got a few that are like the presets. A lot of times it's the most commonly used. And if you just clicked on one of those, it would just automatically put it behind, it goes behind the text. So if you have a bunch of text, in fact, let me pull up the one I had earlier, that we were looking at in the example. So if I were to add a watermark to this page, in fact, we'll keep doing it on this page, you can see it goes behind the text and it's light enough that you can still read it. Okay. So if I did that, I'm like, oh, but I don't want that anymore. I can remove it like that. Okay. So if I go into custom watermark, that lets me choose. Okay. So you can do either a text watermark where I just come in here and I type in my name, which I believe is what you'll do in your assignment. And then you can even change the font. Okay, feel free to do that in your assignment, even though it doesn't tell you have to. And you want to pick something light. If you pick like a really dark color, it's going to come in that dark. So you don't want it necessarily very dark. So I would always pick something kind of light, or I can go to more colors and choose something here, or go to custom and choose something here. Okay, I don't know if you've ever really messed with colors before, but it does give you a lot of freedom there. And I can do it diagonal or horizontal. And then once I apply it, it's going to show up in the background. Okay. The other option is a picture watermark, which is what you'll be doing. You'll be doing a text watermark in your practice today, but you'll be doing a picture one in the application. Choose picture and select your image of where you're looking for it. Notice you have several options. You can do it from file. You can do a search online. So I'm just going to go grab a random picture. So I'm just going to grab this picture because I used it in an assignment the other day, and I'm just going to apply that, and it puts it as my background. And notice it's already washed it out. It's already kind of grayed it. You can turn that off a little bit. You can also decide how big you want it to be. You can raise the scale of it. The washout, I don't know. I've seen some students that they'll turn it off and it prints way dark. That's one thing I've just noticed with my own students is that it kind of just depends on your printer. Sometimes you have to try it both ways, and I've seen it behave differently for different students in the same computer lab. So it can be confusing. I would probably start with washout unless it tells you otherwise. But anyway, so that makes it a picture background that you can use for your watermark. The next thing is a page break. And this can be confusing to people what breaks are. If you go to layout, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of breaks in here. And over the next few lessons, we'll be learning how to do column breaks, continuous, and page. Those are the most commonly used ones. So I actually used a page break in the beginning during the introduction. I don't know if you noticed, I did one page and then I suddenly had 2 pages to show you it goes on 2 pages. I used a page break to do that. So what that means is if I've got my stuff here and I want to get onto a second page, I have 2 options. I can either just press enter until the second page appears, right? And then I can paste my stuff or whatever, okay? So now it's fine and all, but if I were to come in here and add stuff, do you see how this keeps moving down? Okay, because what I've done is when I put those enters in, I literally put in a little code that put enters, pushing everything down. Okay, and that's what you're doing is you're actually putting in a code, and you type anything when you press enter, when you do columns, whatever you do, you're putting little codes in, telling the computer what to do. And so if I do a bunch of enters, those enters right here, they're like just the same as text. They're sitting there. They exist. And if I put stuff in, they're just going to move down. Okay, so sometimes you don't want that. Okay, you want this to stay at the top of the second page. Okay, so my other option, I'm going to get rid of that again. Okay, and get rid of all, no, notice I'm getting rid of all the enters. See, there's still a second page. Okay, that's because all those enters are there. I'm going to backspace and get rid of them all, press delete until they're gone. Okay, so now there's no enters there anymore. And instead, I'm going to do a page break. So one way is to go to breaks and page. The one I actually use the most is Control Enter. Does the same thing. That's just a shortcut. Okay, now I paste my stuff. So it looks identical, but if I press enter here, Now it might move, but it will move down an entire page. It's going to keep this at the top of the page no matter what. Okay, if I only add one enter, because that's what I have room for, then I'm fine. It's not going to move. So you've put a code that says, I want this paragraph at the top of the page. And if I add too much stuff in front, it will literally pull it down to another page. Now, that can be kind of confusing to people. Sometimes you don't understand why it's doing that. And the only way to really see it is to go to View and then go to Draft. I think it's Draft. I always get them confused. Maybe it's Outline. Yeah, go to View and Outline, and then you can see the page break is right there. So if you're like, why is it behaving that way? Why is it suddenly creating another page? I can see my page break in there, and that gives me an idea, and I can delete it if I want. But that's the only place where you can actually see the page break and what it's doing. These little dots are, enters, right? Showing me where all my enters are. And so I might be like, oh, I want to get rid of all those enters. Okay, so the outline view is going to let you see where all your breaks are. So if you get confused, especially when you get into columns, sometimes that's a good way to check that. Okay. All right, the next thing we're going to learn about is wrap text. And this is the thing that causes all the pain that people were talking about when they say, I moved it 1 millimeter to the left and everything screwed up. It's because they don't know how to do this. Okay, they don't know how to do this. So that's why it's the first thing I have to teach you before I can teach you the difference between text and images. You've got to watch how images and text interact. And if you know PowerPoint, you don't have to do this in PowerPoint. You pull an image into PowerPoint, it's really easy to work with. But Word, because it's about words, it can be a little tricky. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a picture. We'll just grab this. I don't know why I have that, but there you go. Okay, so I've got this picture here. Now, what you'll notice is that when I pull an image in, and that we kind of saw this in the example I showed you at the beginning, it automatically, the default, meaning what it does without you changing anything, is it's going to put it in the middle of a sentence. Okay, and so when I move it, it's very frustrating. Everything moves, everything looks all screwed up, and that's because it's putting it in the middle of the sentence. And a lot of kids will be like, oh, well, then I just need to make it smaller. But no matter how small you make this, it's still going to disrupt it. Okay. And most of the time, I don't know why that's the default. It's not really the one that you are going to end up wanting to use. So right here, you've got a little button that says that's your layout option. So you can get to this several ways. You can click on it here. You can right click and go to wrap text. You can go to picture tools up here and go to wrap text. It's in there a lot of places. And there are so many options in there. I'm actually going to do this one because it's easier to see. So if I do square, it's going to have all the text move around it. Okay, and it will do it in a square shape. So let me show you why that matters. Like I've pulled in this little icon here, we'll talk about icons later, but it works the same way. But if I put this one into square, everything moves and it makes a square around the edge. Whereas if I put it into tight, it will actually go around the edges of the image and not, you know what I see? Do you see how it actually like fills in around the edges versus square that looks like that? Okay. So that's the difference between those two. Those are probably the most commonly used. You can also do, I never really used through. I guess it goes farther. I don't know. It looks like similar to tight to me, but it looks like it's tighter than tight, I guess. I don't ever use that one. And then you've got lines so that it's always above and below. Okay, again, not one I use often, but I have used it before. And then you can put it in front of text. This is great if this one's behind text. You can't really tell because it's black. So let me go back to this one. Did you notice though, when I put that behind text, I couldn't pick it up again and move it? Okay, same thing with this one. It can be a big pain. Once you put something behind text, it's like, I can't grab it. Okay, the way around that is in your home, you're gonna go to select and do select objects, and then it will only let you click on images. And then you can move it exactly where you want it to go. So yeah, behind text can be a little tricky to work with. And then when you're done, you want to make sure you go back to select and do select all again, or else you won't, you do select all, so that you can select regular stuff again, right? Okay, now I can't get it, so let me go back to select objects. Okay, the other option is to do in front of text. Okay, this one right here. I believe that's it. There we go. If you put your cursor over it long enough, it will show you. And then it is much easier to move it where I want it. And this one's great if you have like a title. Let me go back. So you can see how now it won't let me select anything. So it's a pain. I just avoid using behind text at all costs, but just because it's a pain in the butt. But if I have a big title here, okay, and it's centered and big and everything, okay, this is what it'll do in the lesson 3, I believe you do this, but it lets me put it wherever I want. So if I wanted something next to the title like that, that'd be great. Whereas if I had it on tight, it would actually move the title over. See, I don't want to do that. I want the title to stay put, so I can put it in front of text and it's a lot easier to work with. Okay, so that's why people think there are sirens in the background. It's because they don't know how to change the wrap on an image. Okay. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is text effects versus word art. These are very similar things, and the only difference, they can look identical, but the difference is that one is an image and one is text. So I can type in, I don't know, it popped in my head. Okay, so I'm going to type in the word Sunday, and I'm going to come in here to text effects, and I'm going to choose this one. It doesn't matter which one. Okay, they have names. If you hold a cursor over it, will tell you what it's called. Okay, so I do this one. Okay, or let's do one that's easy. Let's do this one. Okay, so fill, blue, accent 1, shadow. Okay, and I can make it bigger. And then I could also go into word art and I can pick the exact same thing, type the word Sunday. It looks pretty much identical, right? Make it a little smaller. And honestly, I could put them next to each other and you cannot tell the difference. But one is text effects and one is word art. The difference is this one's an image. Okay, so word art can actually move. I can change the wrap on it and I can actually put it inside and treat it just like text. If I want to move it, I got to put my cursor on the corner or on the edge. It turns into a 4-sided arrow, lets me move it. Whereas this one is still text. If I move it, it's going to treat it like text. It's just going to put it in the middle of the sentence. Okay, so if I have a subtitle or something, or even just a title like this, I probably don't need to use word art for that necessarily. It'll probably work just fine to come in here and do one of these. It'll work great. Okay. But if it's something that I want to have complete control over where it is in the document, then I'm probably going to want to do word art. Okay. So let's go into those, each of it individually, text effects. So you do have the presets. They're not gorgeous. I don't love them, but if you pick a preset, you can change it. Okay. I can change my color right here. Okay. I can change the color of it. I can go back to my effects and I can change all kinds of stuff. So I have shadows, I can add a reflection, I can add a glow around it. I don't really use any of these, but one thing you need to know for MOS test, if you're doing your MOS test, is that it won't just say on the test, like add a shadow. It will say add shadow this percent or whatever. It'll tell you like the name of it. So I want offset bottom shadow. So you have to kind of understand that you got to put your cursor on it and look at it. And you can even go into shadow options and you can choose a preset, but you can also change the color of the shadow, how transparent it is, angle. I mean, you really have a lot of control over every little thing in each one of them. Okay. And so that's kind of how you're going to be using that for the text effects. Now in word art, it's very similar, but you have to go to drawing tools. Okay. So with word art, you use this up here to change it because it's an image, right? So you notice that you've got two sides here, shape and text. Don't get them mixed up because they look very similar. But shape will color the background, which is not something you can do the same way over here. It'll color the background of that box. Okay, it'll also let you change the outline of that box, what color it is, and you can change how thick it is. You can change the dots or whatever, so you can make it have different styles or whatnot. Okay, and shape effects. You can add some of the same effects you did on this. You can put a glow around it, right? You can add a reflection. It also has bevel. Okay, bevel is another difference between the two. You can't do a bevel on text effects, but a bevel kind of makes it look like a little button. Okay, it's pretty cool actually. And if you hold your cursor down long enough, you'll see the name of it. Okay, there's Riblet. You're going to use that one today. And you can see what it's called. Okay, or you can go to 3D options, and again, you can have more options of how you're going to change it and how deep it's going to be and whatnot, all that. Okay, and I think I remember that being on the MOS test where you had to actually come in here and fix it. So that's if you're doing the shape fill. And then of course you've got the text fill, which will change the color of the words, text outline if you want to use that. And then the text effects are in here as well. And another difference is that, let's get rid of the shape fill, by the way. You just come in here and say no fill if you want to get rid of that. Outline, no outline. That's how you get rid of it. So a text effects also has rotation, 3D rotation, that you cannot do in the other one, or not text, sorry, word art has that you can't do in text effects. It also has transform that lets you change how the words are on the page. And again, you cannot do that on text effects because it's an image and you have a lot more freedom to move it exactly how you want to do it. So we've learned the difference between two different types of text and image that look very similar. And there's also kind of another one, which is your paragraphs and your text boxes and your shapes. So in lesson 1, we kind of already learned this a little bit, right? We did a shape and you can draw it and you can type in it, right? And you can also do insert text box and you can type in it. And they're actually pretty similar. These two are both images that can be moved. Oops. And so they don't need to have the wrap changed on them necessarily, although you can change the wrap on both of them. Notice the little wrap thing comes up, so I can. So they're very similar. The difference is just in how they look and how they behave, right? A text box has a little bit more versatility than a shape. But the other option to do is to, and notice I can change the border on that. So I don't, in this one, I would have to go to drawing tools. It's a little bit like word art, right? I have to go to drawing tools to change the text fill or the shape fill. It's actually very similar to word art. It's just in shapes. So whereas text, I can change it in the same place. Drawing tools, I can do the text fill and whatever. So they're very similar to each other, but this one I do have a lot more options, what I can do with it and how much I can fit in there and all of that stuff. Okay, so that's a little bit of a review from lesson 1. But you can also just highlight a paragraph and add a background to it. Okay, and then you can come here, and this one's a little harder to find. You have to come to your borders. Okay, this is where all your borders are, and you can put a border in it right here. Okay, if we've done Excel, this will look familiar to you. But I could add my all borders there, but I don't have a lot of options what that border looks like. So I'm going to come down here to borders and shading. Now in borders and shading, you've got borders. I wish this said paragraph borders instead of just borders, but this is where I add my paragraph border. So I can change how thick it is, what color it is, what width it is, depending on which font I pick or whatever. Some of them have more options than others, right? And then when I click OK, it's going to apply it to that paragraph, and now it has a little border around it, okay? We'll do page borders in a second, but that way, this is going to be treated a bit more like my text effects, where it's still text, and if I move it, I have to highlight the whole paragraph, and I can move the paragraph, but it isn't something that I can just pick up and put in the middle of a put in the middle of something, right? In fact, in your assignment, I think I have you come in here and do tight, and it actually cuts it off. See how it cuts it off? Okay, it will actually interrupt it because it's still a paragraph, and it won't move this over. The only way to do that is to actually move the margin over like that. Okay, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So now you've learned borders for a shape, for a text box, and also for a paragraph. The last type of borders is your is going to be a page border. Okay. So we're going to go back to design. I told you we'd do a little bit of design today, and we've done watermark. Now we're going to go over to page borders, which gets me to this same page, by the way. So if you don't want to have, you can either go here to get to borders and shading and go back and forth, or you can just go over to your design and click on it here. Okay. So for a page border, there's 2 different kinds. Okay. You've got your line borders, which are the most common. They're more professional looking. For most things, you'd probably just use your line borders. And it's exactly the same as what's here, right? It looks identical pretty much, but it's going to add it to your whole page, and it will add it to every page, okay? You have some control. You can say, oh, I only want it on this section or the first page. I've always found it kind of hard to get it on only one page, but I could say I'll accept the first page, and so see how the first page doesn't have it, and then all the others do, or vice versa. So you do have a little bit of control there. The other one is an art border. We're going to do this more, I think, in assignment 3, and these can be really obnoxious, especially the ones like that. I don't like to use them very much, but if you want to play with them for a minute, you're welcome to. You can sometimes change the color if it's, one that can be changed. And some of these aren't too bad, but I find most of them obnoxious, but they can look okay. And then you can, add a color or whatever, and it will add that kind of a border. And see, that looks nice. It just depends on what you're using it for, but all the little cupcakes and apples and stuff are pretty cheesy. So they've not changed the borders in Microsoft Word ever. I swear they were the same in the very first version as they are today. Okay, so that's how you do your page borders. The last thing in this section where we're talking about images versus text is going to be your symbols versus your icons. Okay, icons are new to 2019. And so if you're using an older version of 2016 with this, you're not gonna be able to do the icons, but symbols are the same. So a symbol is text and icons are image. So for symbol, you go to insert, you can go to symbol, and there's a lot in here because I've been using this a lot as I've been writing these lessons, but you want to go to more symbols, and there's a lot of symbols in here. So there's different fonts that are designed to, instead of being letters, they're actually images, and you can download cool fonts that just have a bunch of snowflakes or a bunch of different kinds of symbols or whatever. So the ones that come with your computer are going to be Wingdings. Okay, I like to just type it in and then pull this down. And then I've got Wingdings and then Wingdings 2 and Wingdings 3, and they all just have lots of different images inside them, okay? Another one that's actually, I didn't even know this existed until I took the MOS test for Word in 2019. It's called SEGOE. I literally had no idea this even existed until I did that, but there's a bunch of them in here, okay? And these are all, they just come with your computer. You'll already have them. Every computer should have them. And you can click on like emoji, and there's a whole bunch of different ones in here that you can click on. So if I click on an image, I can click insert, and it actually puts it inside my document, okay? These are color. That's pretty cool. The emoji ones are color. I don't usually see that. I see I have a lot to explore myself. And so there's just kind of different ones that are in here, different images that you, or different symbols that you can do. And they are being treated like text, okay? They're just part of a sentence. They're not going to interrupt. Remember, if we take an image and we try to move it, like this one over here, we put it on tight, no matter what I do, it's going to interrupt. I can make it as small as I want, but it's still going to interrupt things unless, of course, I set it to inline with text, okay? But even then, it's still not going to, it's still an image. It's still going to be treated weird, right? So symbols are better for that. Another thing you got to know about symbols, especially if you're going to take the MOS test, is that they all have numbers. They all have names. So if I click on this, see, it's character code 40. Okay, so I should be able to do Alt, hold down the Alt key and type 40, and it should come up, but it's going to do it from the font, I think the default font, which I think is the symbol font. So it doesn't always work the way you think it's going to, because I think it takes it from the symbol font. I'm not even sure. So like in your assignment here, it's going to say symbol 212, and you'll just hold down the Alt. If it tells you to do Alt, like this one, Alt 165, it'll just come up. That's how you get characters if you're typing up like a foreign language, especially if you're typing in Spanish. That's how you get the different characters that aren't going to show up on your keyboard. And so a lot of people that use those, like if you have that in your name or something, you just kind of have to learn what the shortcut is, so that you can pull that up right away. So, but most of them aren't going to be like that. Only if it says Alt, do that. These three, I believe. And then the other ones, you have to go look them up. And so in order to look them up, you would go into insert symbol. So this one is, let's see which one, Wingdings 397. So I would go into more symbols. I go to Wingdings 3. And then over here where it says character code, I just type in 97 and it finds it. And I insert it. There we go. Okay. So that's what these numbers are. And some of them are weird. Like this one, E141. Yep. That's what you got to type in to find it. Okay. So you just type it into this character code in order to find it. So those are your symbols. Then you've got icons, which have been added, and I have to say, I love them. They're awesome. So you click on icons. There's tons and tons of them in here. You can even search for something you want, and it will come up. And I insert it, but it is a picture, okay? I have to immediately change the wrap. And you've been watching me do this already because this is a symbol up here. So everything I've done with this rabbit throughout this assignment is using wrap on a symbol, okay? And symbols, you can't change a lot about it. You can change the fill. You can change the outline. You can add a glow and everything. You can't make a gradient or anything, but you can do quite a bit with it, and then you can kind of move it however you want it to be. So that's the icon that you can use in your document. And notice again that this one is more treated like an image. All right, we're going to move on to the next section, which is text features. So these are just some different features you can use in text. And the first one we're going to learn, I'm going to get a new page for this, is outline. And I use outline all the time. I used to write all my lessons this way, but an outline means, first of all, you can number things. So if I type a 1-period tab, you're going to see, and I would encourage you to get a blank page and do this with me right now. If you see this come up, then you know it's working. And so if I type something and then I press enter, it's going to just automatically number. If I'm done numbering, press enter twice and it goes away. Okay. Or if I already have a list of stuff, okay, I can highlight it. Sorry, having issues. I can select it like that. And then up here, I can just click the little number button and it will number it for me. Okay. So that's some basic how to add some numbers. Now, what if I have some subtitles I want? So let's say I'm like, okay, 1 tab, don't do a comma, won't work. Okay. And I'm like, go to the store. And then I press enter and I have a subcategory. I'm like, okay, but while I'm at the store, I need to remember to get eggs and milk and butter. And then, I'm going to tab again. Make sure to get spreadable kinds. Okay. Then when I press enter again, I'm stuck in this third level. So I have to go back. Okay. Shift tab takes me back a level. Okay. And then maybe my next thing is, call the school. ask about registration or something, okay? And then Shift Tab to get back. So that's kind of how you do your outline. You're going to be using that twice today for outlines, and also when we do Smart Art, we use kind of the same concept. So knowing that Shift Tab back and forth, really important. That's used in PowerPoint as well when you're using bullets in PowerPoint. Okay, so we'll be doing bullets later, but this whole thing typed up, but for some reason, I don't want this to be 3. I want it to be 4 or something. I can kind of click near it, right click, and I can say restart at 1. I can say set numbering value, and I want it to start with 4, right? And I can actually choose that, or I can continue numbering, okay? So that it will join back with what's before it. So you do have that control. And I swear I've taken an MOS test where they made you set the numbering value. Pretty sure that's been on the MOS test. So it lets you kind of pick where you want it to start, okay? And again, when you're done, press enter twice. You can go back up if you want to, but that'll get you out of the numbering system, okay? Okay, the next thing we're gonna learn is Format Painter. And this is, once you know this thing, it's super useful. And it basically, we know how to copy and paste, right? Like if I wanted to copy this, I could do Control C, and then maybe I could come down here and do Control V and then change it to a 5, right? And so I know how to copy and paste. Well, Format Painter is like copying and pasting, but instead of copying the words paragraph 1, I'm gonna copy the formatting. So let's go into paragraph 1 first, and I'm gonna go over here, and let's say I do a whole bunch of stuff to it. You know, I've changed the size, I've changed the color, maybe changed the background. And I'm like, okay, now I want all my titles to look like that. So I could go to each title and try to remember what I just did. Or I can highlight paragraph 1, hold down the Format Painter. Notice it's right up here, and notice it stays pushed in. You get one use out of it, right? Then when I highlight this, it copies that formatting over. Then I dip my brush again, and I go to my next one. Dip my brush again, go to my next one, right? Now there is a shortcut. If you're gonna do a bunch of them, you can double click on Format Painter, and that keeps it pushed down, and then I can just highlight each one. So if I know I'm gonna use it a lot, that's probably the best thing, and then I have to turn it off when I'm done, okay? And then maybe you have a paragraph that doesn't look quite right. You know, this is a different font, and I want it to look like this one. Well, then I can highlight this font, Format Painter, pull this down, and it will fix it so that it's so you can use it in lots and lots of different ways. The most common mistake, I always tell my students, it's a little bit like playing Operation. It takes a steady hand, because sometimes you might do that by accident and you're like, crap, you know, what do I do? So make sure you do Control Z to undo that. And then the part kids forget is I got to re-highlight. And so a lot of kids forget that the first step, just like when you copy and paste something, first you say, this is what I want to copy, and now copy it. Okay, same thing. You got to highlight it, Format Painter, select, right? So that's how you do the Format Painter. We're going to be using that a lot. Okay, next one is hyperlinks. This one's pretty straightforward. You're going to highlight whatever you want to have a hyperlink. And there's 2 places to find it. So let's say I want this word highlighted. I want it to have a hyperlink to a website. So I can right click and go to link, or I can go to insert and go to link right there. And then I would just type in www.amazon.com, whatever. And then it actually will link to it. To get to it though, I have to hold down the Control key and click on it. And hopefully, I don't know if I'm doing that wrong. There we go. And then actually, sorry, I have 2 screens, but it opened up over here. But you saw how that was kind of a pain to get it to click right. And so that's why sometimes adding a screen tip is a good idea. I'm not going to lie, I had never used screen tips until I took the MOS test. And I was like, what? And I had to figure it out in the test because I'd never used it before. But it's pretty useful. So when you do the link, you can click a screen tip that says, you know, click here to go to Amazon. And then you click OK and OK. And now when you put your cursor over it, it will actually say what you want it to say. And I think it makes it a little easier to click. At least I found it to be that way. So that's how you can add a hyperlink. If you want to remove a hyperlink, you just right click and do remove. Okay. You can also do a hyperlink to like an icon. That's actually one of the common uses for an icon. So you can right click and add a link to it that way. Same with an image, pretty much everything, especially any kind of image, you can right click and add a hyperlink to. So going back to that, if I have an image that I've added a hyperlink to, I want you to make sure you know as well that when I do a link, it doesn't have to just be to a website. I can also place in this document and send it to a specific bookmark I've created. We'll talk about bookmarks later, but you can do that. So if you have a bookmark, it'll take you to a specific spot in the document. Maybe it's like a 30-page document. You want them to be able to click and go directly to one page, right? So you can do it that way. You can also create a hyperlink to other assignments. So like I could click on a file and click OK. And now when I click on that, again with the control, it will actually open up that file. Okay, and it's not going to find it because of where it's saved. But you can actually open up a file using a hyperlink. Okay. All right, another one is change case. This is super, super fast. But when you want like this paragraph, maybe I want it to change case, which means I highlight it. And I come up here to where these two little A's are, and I can immediately put it to uppercase. So I don't have to retype the entire thing, or toggle case, or capitalize each word, or lowercase, sentence case. So it can just save you a little bit of time. But note that if I format paint it, it won't go with it. Okay, because it's a text thing and not an image thing, it's not going to copy it over. So in your assignment, you'll have to do this where you have to go in individually and change each one to uppercase. For some reason it just doesn't go with it. Okay, next one is clipboard. Your clipboard is over here, and it's right here, and it's going to show you everything that you have copied and pasted. So I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but if I copy something and then I copy something else, I lost the first thing I copied, right? So if I copy, let me turn this off for a second. So if I copy this and then I copy this, I'm doing Control C. When I come down here to paste it, it's going to paste the second thing I copied. I lost the first thing, but I didn't actually. If I go to my clipboard, it's going to show all the things I've already pasted. So I still have access to that first thing that I copied. Okay. So your clipboard is going to keep track of all the things that you've copied and pasted. Now, the trick with it is that if you leave, so if you're doing this assignment and you close down for the day and you come in the next day, all your clipboard's going to be cleared out. Okay. And so in your assignment, that's why I immediately have you paste it, because I don't want you to like copy it and then, or cut it, even worse. What if you cut it completely? Control X, it's gone, right? And then you save this document and you leave, and then you come back tomorrow, that thing you cut isn't going to be in your clipboard anymore. Okay. It's going to clear out. So you want to make sure if you do cut it and put it in your clipboard, you use it the same day, because once you close the document, it's gone. Okay. But then I can come down here and I can paste whatever I'm looking for. So that's what your clipboard is. You just click on this little arrow right here to open that. You can clear everything out of your clipboard if you want. But that's kind of where it goes, where it's sitting and waiting for you to paste stuff. All right, we're going to move on to just a few image features. Really quickly, I want to go through these. Image size is quite useful if you go to an image that you've inserted and you go to Picture Tools. Okay, we've kind of looked at a few of these things. There's some stuff in here you can mess with, but picture size is right here. You can actually change the height. So if you ever pull an image in and it's giant and then you're like trying to drag it and make it smaller, it's a lot faster just come in here and change the height. And it will automatically change the width with it. So you don't really have to change both unless you want it to be a weird ratio. But it does allow you to change it very quickly. And so sometimes if you have stuff in here and you want to make sure they're roughly the same size, you can do the same thing with, icons, right? To make sure they're about the same size or whatever. So that's how you change your height. We do use that quite a bit. Horizontal lines. So we've learned about borders, but horizontal lines are different because, again, you've got a border, which is text. Okay, you can't really change it. You can't move it. But horizontal lines are an image, and they can actually be moved. Okay, so again, we're looking at that same dichotomy of like when it's text versus an image. So if I do a border, I don't have a lot of control over where it goes. But with a text or a horizontal line, you just pull this arrow down, you choose horizontal line right here, okay, and it will insert one for you. And the way you can really tell it's different is I can double click on a horizontal line and I can change stuff about it. And I've kind of limited what I can do, but one thing you can just change the width of it. So I like to go by inches and just say, it's going to be, 4 inches long. I can change how tall it is. And I can change what color it is, and now I have a new sort of border there, right? Or sorry, new horizontal line. So you have that option, whereas if you come in here and you just do a border, so maybe I do like a, horizontal border or a top border or something, it's just black, okay? I mean, if I've changed my borders in here, I believe it will change and go like that. But so it's weird. It's just, this is more like a border that looks like a line, whereas this is straight up a line that I can move. I can't move this border. I literally cannot pick it up and move it. So the one I just did here, this border, you don't have to learn how to do that. I just wanted to show you the difference.
but a horizontal line I can pick up and move, although I'm not able to change the wrap on it. So it's always going to be in line with text. All right, the last two are kind of weird, and they're a little more advanced for lesson 2, but they're part of what we're learning, so there you go. But one is 3D models, which is to me the weirdest thing to put in Word, but I have seen it on the MOS test. And it's cool. You don't want to do from file, okay? You always want to go from online sources, and they just have a whole bunch of them already in here. And you just pick one, okay? So like this one, I insert that, and it pulls in this image. It will automatically have wrap around it. You don't have to change the wrap on these images. It won't do in line with text, but it actually lets you move it around. I'm not entirely certain why you would use this in Word, but I do know it's on the MOS test, and there you go. It also has some views here, and that's going to be in your assignment that it'll say, you know, put it on top view or bottom view. And there's all these different views that are in here. Wow, that's weird. Below left, there's all kinds of weird ones. Or you can just set it to where you think it looks cool, okay? So that's 3D models, pretty simple. Notice you don't have to change. This is the one that you pull it in. You can change the wrap, but you don't have to automatically. It's not going to be in line with text as its default, which is different than pretty much every other image that you can insert. All right, the last thing we're gonna do is Smart Art, which is gonna take a bit of time. And note there's gonna be a section at the end that will show you exactly how to do a double Smart Art, because that's gonna be in your application. So we'll just start out with regular or Smart Art first. So we're gonna go to Insert Smart Art, and it's just a way to like organize information in a visual graphic way, so it's interesting to look at, okay? And they list it in different types, you know, a matrix, a pyramid. This is all the ones that require you to pull in pictures, cycle. So you can just click on one, you click OK. And a lot of kids, the first interaction is to want to type in here, but I want you to notice that over here, it's just like your outline, okay? So I could say, like, say I want to make this into the water cycle, okay? So I put in condensation, and then I put in precipitation. I would pick something that's hard to spell, and I can't type and spell at the same time, apparently. Collection, and then evaporation, right? And I've got one extra, right? Evaporation. Okay, I've got one extra that I don't need, so I'm just going to delete that, or sorry, backspace that. So now I've just got the 4. And if I have more, I can add more, okay? And sometimes you can actually do like subcategories where I can maybe explain it, right? And it lets me put in, I have to tab, you know, so it's just like when you're creating an outline. It's kind of the same thing over here. And then I come over here and I can change. Maybe I'm like, oh, but I like this one better. And it will actually adjust it. Get rid of this one to fit whatever I've put in. Okay. I can change the styles. Okay. The styles all have names. So if I put my cursor over it, it will tell me the name of the style. So metallic, scene, or whatever. I can change colors up here. Now the color system I find annoying. They really don't give you a ton of options. And so what you can do is if you want to change an individual one, you just right click on it and you can change the fill right there. You can do a gradient, you know, if you wanted to make it fancy or add a texture or something, you have that ability. Go to more gradients, add a gradient over here. So that's kind of cool. I haven't really done that in the assignment, but you can also change, make sure when you click on it though, that you're not in the typing mode, or else right clicking won't get you there. You make sure you click on just the shape and then right click and you'll get there, and you can change your outline or whatever. Okay. So, so that's basically how you do it. And you might want to also like resize it and make it small, like, you know what I mean? Like just kind of fit it in tight so you don't have any extra space that you don't need. So it's easier to work with. And then of course it's an image. So I need to come in here and put it into like in front of text or something so I can move it exactly where I want. Or maybe I want it on tight because I want it to be inside. So I'm going to pull it up here. I want it to be part of my document, so I can change it to tight so that it's actually in there, or better yet, square would probably work better, right? So that it's not doing crazy crap, okay? So now I've created one like that, okay? And so yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ones in here. Another type you can do is if it has pictures. So I can go to Smart Art and do picture, and it actually allows me to go in here and grab a picture, okay? So I can go get something from file. Okay, I just have a wood grain in there for some reason. Or I can go to icons, which you'll be doing in your assignment. I can put a little icon in there, which can look great. Or you can go get something from online. I'm just going to grab this car or whatever. So you can put pictures inside it, which can make it more explanatory or whatever. You can move different pieces. You can make it taller or wider. Okay, so you've got a lot of freedom there. All right, so that's how you do word art. Make sure you know you can change the wrap text. So I'm going to show you how to do the one in your assignment pretty much exactly, because it is quite confusing, because you're kind of, you're doing two on top of each other. Plus we're going to use a feature called grouping, which I haven't actually taught you yet. Okay, so what we're going to do is, and honestly, it's not a bad idea in your assignment to just go open a new document and create it in the new document and then paste it over, because it's very frustrating to use it when you've got all these words around it and moving around. So I'm just going to go to a new page to do this, and I think it'll be a lot easier. So I'm going to go to Insert, I'm going to go to Smart Art, and the first one it wanted you to do, so I don't know why, but I can never find it in the one that I told you guys to use. I can never find it. It always frustrates me. So if you can't find the one that I tell you to get, then you want to go to, is actually pick this one, which is picture strips, and click OK, and then come over and select this one. So I don't know why, I don't know, sometimes I can find this, but as I've been doing this assignment, like I'm getting frustrated because I can't always find this option. So if you're having a hard time, just go to picture strips and then pick it from the layout, because it's very similar. Anyway, and so then you'll fill in all the stuff, you know, type in what you're supposed to do. I'm not going to go into the detail on that. This one, you're supposed to do an icon. I think you have to type in person to get the right icon, because you're putting like a person in it. Anyway, so that's the first one. And what you want to do when you're done with that, when you've created it as it's told you, is make it as small as you can. Like, don't have any extra spaces around it. Like, don't let it be giant. So we want it to be about that big. Okay. And then you got to change the wrap to, anything tight, as long as it's movable. Okay, so I have that one ready. Then I'm going to go into Insert, and the next Smart Art you do is a cycle, and you probably want to do the arrows right here. Okay, so I have my arrows, type my stuff in, blah blah blah. Okay, and what I want is I want the arrows to be, I want this to be on top of this one. So I'm going to change the wrap on this one and actually put it behind text. Okay, because you want to be able to select them both, and if the little one is behind the big one, you're not going to be able to select a little one. So you want this one to be behind text. So I make it bigger. I can move it where I want it. Then I'm going to take this one and move it down inside of it, and I can kind of organize it. Okay. Now yours is going to look much better because you'll have done all the right wording and stuff, but now you've got them organized together. Okay. Now this is the part where it gets a little tricky, and this isn't something I've taught elsewhere, and this is grouping. So I'm going to click on this one. Okay. The inside one. Make sure it's a 4-sided arrow. You've got the outside. I'm going to hold down the Control key, and I'm going to click on the outside one. So now they're both highlighted. Okay. And then you got to right click and group. And it can be tricky getting that right click to show group. You want to click right on the edge where the 4-sided arrow is and group it. So now it's one image. So now I can do Control X. I can come back to my document and paste it. And I'm probably going to want to change the wrap on that. Sorry, I'm in my, how did I get in there? I want to change the wrap on the whole thing to tight, or probably square, and then all the words will kind of go around it. And again, I need to make it a little bit smaller. I need to make it tight, right? I don't need all that extra space on the two sides, because that just makes it huge. So I want to kind of tighten it up a little bit like that, so that it's easy to get stuff around it. So yeah, it's a little tricky, but it's kind of cool to use two word arts or two Smart Arts together. Okay. So, and then it does actually tell you exactly what size it should be. And so when you click on it like this and go to drawing tools over here, it'll tell you like, oh, I want it to be 3 inches or something. It tells you exactly what size to make it so that it will fit correctly in your document. Okay, so that is the end of lesson 2. I know this was a big one. It's probably the biggest lesson. There's a lot in it, but you can do it. Good luck, and we'll see you back on lesson 3.